Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Years ago, my father had us hit me with a saying, and I think our parents hit us with lots of sayings, or people we have in our family hit us with lots of sayings, but this was one of many that have stuck with me with respect to what my dad said, other than "get out," which I listened to as well. But my dad shared with me, he said, if you go to rescue someone and they don't want to be saved, you become the victim. And I thought about that. It was a challenging time in my own life, and he was kind of coaching me through it, if you will. But if you go to rescue someone and they don't want to be saved, you become the victim. And he kind of went on to explain in using the metaphor, the example of, if you swim out to go rescue someone who's flailing in the water and it's not their intent to be saved, then you are in jeopardy because you're out there in the water. Certainly you can swim to shore, but if you're trying to save them, they don't want to be saved, they're going to pull you down. And I got it relative to the situation I was in. I got it relative to that example, and I've thought about that over the years, and I've related it to networking and giving. And if you give to someone and they don't want it, it's a wasted effort. You stop and think about it. You go out of your way to do something for somebody, refer somebody, a client, um, you know, promote something they have, and they don't want you to do that. You've kind of wasted your effort. And I think this is the fear of a lot of people, or not even that they don't want the effort, but even if they're not willing to reciprocate, you've kind of wasted the effort. And I've endured that. I think we all have. I've done things for people, and it's clear that they are not going to reciprocate. They so much as say so. I just will never refer you. One person told me, I'll never refer you because I can do what you do. So why would I ever refer you? And it stings. And you realize, okay, I kind of wasted that effort. Really nothing you can do. You move on. I didn't become jaded towards the world. Or that person. I'm just like, all right, I'm not going to waste my efforts anymore. But people are one of the things that stands in the way of people giving to others is this fear that if they do something for someone and that person doesn't want it, or that person's not going to reciprocate, you're actually in a worse position. And logically, that's true. If you do something, if you take time out of your day to do something for somebody and they don't want it, or they're not going to reciprocate, that time's gone. There's nothing you can do about it. Just like the person that I had referred, this is back when I was an attorney, I referred them business, and they just clearly said, I can do what you do. I'll never refer you. You know what? I've already made the referral. It's, they'd already contacted the person. It would just look silly for me to undo it. It was, but I was worse off. Not long term, but certainly in the moment, I'd wasted the moment. I'd wasted the opportunity on this person. I could have given the opportunity to somebody else. Oh, well. And so this way of thinking, this fear of, I don't want to do something for somebody because they might not reciprocate, or they may not really want it. That fear is rational. It certainly is a rational fear. Obviously I've experienced it. So but it's not likely. I could win the lottery. It's not likely. So, kind of the same thought process is that, yeah, there's the thought that, geez, if I do something for somebody else and I don't get it back, that I'm going to be worse off, is a very rational thought. Especially, we don't live we live in a society of abundance. I don't think anybody listening, well, anybody hearing this has a phone. They've got a computer. if you're watching it, you've got a monitor. You know, we all do pretty well. I'm sure nobody goes without a meal, but we still kind of put ourselves in this thought of being kind of having this scarcity mindset. So we're worried about giving to other people and not getting something in return. That being said, the question I get from time to time is, how do I make my network more generous? How can I, how, as the title of this program is, how can I amp up the generosity in my network? And I think that's a legitimate question. We're scared of giving to it because we might not get something in return. Wouldn't it be better if we just had a better network? If we just had people in our network that cared? How do we make it more generous? And the answer to that is just two words. It's called moral elevation. It's an academic term, essentially making the people around us more having better character, being more moral. So I ran across a study, and what the researchers did was they brought students into the social science lab, to play a specially designed game. They called it a zero-sum game. And what they mean by a zero-sum game is they were in teams of four, or there were groups of four playing the game. Zero-sum game meant that not everybody could win. There was a fixed amount of money in the game. And if I won money, then somebody at the table was losing money. Maybe not everybody, but if I won $100 and somebody else or the other three people collectively are out $100. Um, and that was the game. I mean, there was more to the game and what they were playing, and the study doesn't really talk about that, and it doesn't really matter. It's just that people were playing a game, they understood the rules, they played. You could win money, you could lose money, and then the other parameter they had is that you could gift money at any point in time. You could give somebody money. So if I won $100, I could say, "Wow, I had a, did well." Feel bad for somebody, I could give them money. And so students were randomly placed in these groups of four, and I'm not exactly sure how many students were in this particular study, but there were enough that you played a rotation of the game with your original group of four, and then those groups were rotated. So in the second iteration of the game, or the second playing of the game, I would be with three new people, if you will. Um, and so the game went on, and it went from one game to the next to the next. And for several iterations of the game, no one gifted any monies to anybody. I might be winning and this is great. I go to the next game, I lose some, or I might be on a winning streak. People might be losing lots of money, but the games went on. People were winning, people were losing. Nobody was gifting anything. But what ended up happening is that at one point, um, there was one person who gave, and that particular person was in on the study. They referred to these people as, well, certainly as researchers, but a Confederate. Nobody knows that they're part of the research team. They're there, just another student, and a lot of these studies are done among students because, well, they'll work for pizza. They'll work for $20. And the other thing is they're all pretty similarly situated, right? They're all about the same age, and you might have to be dealing with gender and things like that, but for the most part, they're similarly situated. Um, and so this one particular person, the Confederate, actually gave money to somebody, and it doesn't really explain why, but I can surmise that, hey, I just won $100, Lisa. I know you lost, but I really like the way you play. I like the risk you took. It didn't pay off. I'm not going to give you all of my $100, but I'm gonna give you 50. I'll split my winning because I'm really impressed with how you played. And it was this act of generosity. And the other people sitting at the table were probably like, "Wow, um, you know, that was very generous of you to give up some of your money." Well, what that did, and this was the hypothesis, is that signaled to other people that giving was a norm. Giving was okay. Giving was acceptable. Giving was something that you could do within this game, and it was okay. Um, and in future iterations of the game, the Confederate, well, other people started giving. I don't know what the Confederate continued to do, but other people started giving. Not everybody, but there were people who were moved to give to other people. They were inspired by this one act. In essence, the generosity of the Confederate became contagious amongst the other people sitting around. And, so even if you weren't at the table with the Confederate, you might give to somebody at your table of four people. Um, and again, it's just, it's the signaling of, generosity is okay. And if you stop and you think about humanity, and you really kind of get back into the archaeological record, we had to work together. And part of working together is generosity and giving to people. Not everything can be transactional. And so we have really developed as human beings, as society, of being people who are open to giving to other people. We just need to know that when we're doing something, and again, this is getting back to my initial premise, when we're doing something for somebody, the effort is not going to be wasted. And so when you see somebody giving, it sort of gives you hope that, okay, my efforts aren't going to be wasted if I do something for this particular setting, this particular environment. Certainly for the Confederate. And it doesn't say in the study how that all worked. If the Confederate lost, if people were more likely to give to that person, it's just that the entire environment became more giving. Um, just because the Confederate had created this norm, signaled to everybody that, what, giving is okay. Um, and the way I look at it is, I think the lesson here is well, to answer the question, how to amp up the generosity within your network, is you need to be the change you seek in the world. You need to be the giver. You just need to you can't wait for a Confederate to show up and make it right. You just need to make it right. You need to figure out the things that you can do to your network, and to give to your network. And it doesn't have to be money. Obviously, in this game, it was money because that was the central theme of the game, or the essential commodity of the game, was money. But in the real world, it's more than just money. It certainly can be time, signaling to the world that you're generous, or that being generous around you is okay, because you're going to sit and you're going to review somebody's resume, or talk with somebody about things that they should be doing to be a better professional. um, it certainly can be about giving money. It can, be about, giving advice, making referrals. There's lots of ways that we can give to our network. Getting on social media and sharing someone's post, or commenting on someone's post, or tagging people into the post. Hey, Bob, I think you should read this. Susan's somebody you should know. She's somebody you should follow. That doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it is an act of generosity, because you're giving your time, you're giving your social capital, you're connecting people to others. And so we don't have to wait for the Confederate to do those things to signal to others that giving is okay. And what I feel happens from that, because I know I can hear the skeptics out there saying, well, you know, if you're don't you become the chump if you're the giver, and you're going to attract all the non-givers to be around you? And my response to that is, I don't have scientific proof of it, but my sample size of one, meaning my own experience, is that's not the case. Is that what happens in time, is that the non-givers naturally get excluded. I go back to my story as an attorney. There wasn't this formal process where I excommunicated this guy from my giving or from my world. I just naturally moved on. If I'm going to, and what it was is, he was another attorney, and I was referring him things that I didn't do. I didn't do um, DUI hearings. I didn't go down to the court and represent people who were driving under the influence. He did. Um, and he also did all the things I did. So he says. I just found somebody else to refer to because I had people who needed help. I had clients who would reach out to me and say, I've got an employee, had this situation over the weekend. There's just somebody you can get to help them, or can you help them? And I didn't want to say, well, no, I don't know anybody. But I just, but so I didn't formally excommunicate the person. I just moved on and found somebody else. And what I find in time is that if you're a giver, you'll attract other givers because those people are looking for people just like you. They're looking for people who are the Confederates in the world. So if you want to amp up the generosity within your network, you just need to become more generous to start with. That's the simple truth. There's probably no other way to do it. The only thing you can control is how you behave. And what this study shows that if you behave as a giver, you will create giving within your network.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.